Bourbon Street, Jackson Square, and Fairgrounds. Oh, it's Louisiana Derby Day. Let's cap the card. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, and welcome to this very special edition of Capping the Card right here on NYRA Bets YouTube. Make sure to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the channel, whether those are race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, weekly programs, and so much more. Folks, welcome to Capping the Card. We are going to go through all 14, yes, you heard me right, 14 races on Saturday's Louisiana Derby Day card. These are some of my favorite days of the year. I love these huge final round Kentucky Derby and Oaks prep races and the corresponding cards. Tremendous races up and down the card at Fairgrounds on Saturday. Some great maiden special weight races, some fun stakes races on the undercard, and obviously the headliners are going to be a lot of fun to discuss as well. Now, if this is your first time joining Capping the Card, welcome. And the premise is pretty straightforward. I am going to go through all 14 races. I'm going to give you my top pick in each race. That should be pretty self-explanatory. I'm also going to give you a value play. Now, that is a horse that a lot of times is 6-1 or higher on the morning line that I think is useful in one of two ways. Either one, a horse that is, I think, a legitimate win contender at a little bit of a price that you want to include in your pick threes, pick fours, pick fives. Other times, I think it's a horse that's just going to outrun their odds. Maybe a horse that's 10, 12, 15, 20 to 1 that I think use this horse in an exacta trifecta. This is a horse that's going to be helpful for value in some other ways, even if I'm not sure they're a win contender. So listen, folks, I'm going to try to call those distinctions out as we get there. But here's the good news. It's going to be a Chamber of Commerce day at Fairgrounds in New Orleans on Saturday. Absolutely perfect conditions to close out this wonderful meet down there. And you're going to get some really great conditions. So we don't have to worry about sloppy and off or anything like that. We are going to be fast. We're going to be firm. We're going to be having a lot of fun. And let's talk about Louisiana Derby Day. The only way to get through all 14 of these things, we got to start at the beginning. All right, well, let's go into the very first race, which is one of the many spectacular maiden special weight races. This one going a mile and a 16th on the turf for 3-year-olds. And I'm going to try to beat the favorite in this race, the number 5 Prepped. This is a horse for Cherie DeVaux. We're going to talk a lot about Cherie. What's interesting is she's got 2 horses in this race. I like the one at a bigger price a little bit, and they're both getting blinkers on. But Prepped is an interesting horse. This is a horse that's gone off as the favorite 3 consecutive races, 2 second-place efforts, and is getting the blinkers added. That might be the winning move in this particular case. Now, blinkers added has not been necessarily a huge plus move for Cherie over the years. Some of that is context, but it just has not been one of those moves where, when she goes to the equipment change, it's not an automatic. And the bottom line is this is a horse that is 0 for 3 as the favorite in terms of the number 5 Prepped. Are we really going to let this horse go 0 for 4 potentially? It's just a horse that I'm very, casually against. And when I say that, I would, if I'm playing the early pick 5, which I usually do on these days, I'm not going to be fading that horse off of my ticket. But it's a horse that I'm not going to be using as my top selection. My top pick in this race is the number 9, Royal Causeway. Now, this is a horse that's 0 for 6 and has had a few tries and a few bites at the apple and was disqualified from 2nd to 4th last time out, going a mile and a 16th at Fairgrounds over the turf course, but lost to a horse that day, Black Hornet. And that is notable because Black Hornet came back and ran, I thought, very well in the Black Gold Stakes and actually moved forward and earned an 8-point higher buyer speed figure while winning the Black Gold Stakes. And that horse is entered in the Jeff Ruby Stakes on Saturday at Turfway Park. So I thought lost to a very nice horse. And the 3rd place runner, Mischief Ride, dropped down in class to a maiden optional claimer and got the win while moving forward 8 buyer speed figure points as well. So I think this horse has every opportunity to move forward in his next race. I think it's nice to see that Tyler Gaffleone gets up on the mountain, taking over for Florent Giroux for Dallas Stewart. The horse has been working nicely since that February 5th race. 9-2, you're getting a little bit of value for a not this time. I know the female family has not produced much. I think only 3 for 70, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of the career record of her offspring. So not exactly a win machine, but I think Royal Causeway at 9-2 is a combination of ability and odds that I think is pretty interesting in this particular race. Now, in terms of value play, I do like Cherie DeVaux' other horse quite a bit, Mount Vernon. 6-1 on the morning line. This is the son of Constitution out of a more than ready mare. The blinkers are coming on here, and I think that might help. This was a horse that was a little keen in debut, as the trip note said, and just was kind of tugging a little bit. You could tell was throwing his head a little bit, and it's one of those things where I think it was a very educational run, and it was one where he encountered some issues, had to run wide. At one point was just kind of like held up behind horses. I thought Mount Vernon didn't have maybe the best trip on debut. Now we get the blinkers added, second time out. I think those things in combination with each other is nice. You get Cherie's number one jockey, Jose Ortiz, staying on the mount. I don't know if we end up getting 6-1 on this horse. I don't think we will, but this is a nice horse who's the full sibling to Bell of Right, who was a nice horse for Shug McGahee, who's still running actually for Shug. And it's a nice kind of allowance level horse that's kind of dipped to, her toe into some stakes races here and there in a stakes placed. But there's a good female family there for Mount Vernon. So I think it's 6-1. If you could even get 9-2 on a horse like this, I think that's a really good value. And obviously, Cherie's always going to attract a lot of money. I will tell you, if you're looking for a little bit of a bigger price in this race, the number 4 Swerve is a little interesting. That horse's last race, certainly good enough to be in the conversation here. Since this horse switched from dirt to turf for Keith DeSormo, CJ Hernandez up on the mount, I think that horse is at least a little bit interesting and is a horse I'd maybe even throw in a trifecta, superfecta in terms of the number 4 Swerve. Well, let's go to race number 2 on the card, which is the Crescent City Oaks. Yes, we already have a stakes race. This one feels pretty straightforward. 1 mile and 70 yards on the dirt. The number 2, Bracken Papa, that's a really tough horse to get around for Steve Asmussen with Jose Ortiz up on the mount. This is one that's 3 for 4 winning, won 3 in a row, and it's just absolutely decimated the competition. And the problem is the competition is running against him today. There's not a new shooter, or her, I should say. There's not a new shooter coming up against her today. She is beating the same horses she has thoroughly drubbed the last couple of times out. So when you talk about Thrill Seeker, well, shoot, she beat Thrill Seeker by 9.5 lengths last time out, and she beat her by 2 lengths the race before that. Talk about some of these other horses that she's facing against. Watts Love, well, she beat Watts Love by 3 lengths 2 races back in the maiden ranks. So it's just really hard to get around Bracken Papa, and this one feels like a single in that early pick 5 and a little bit of a free square as your 4-5 odds on morning line favorite, I think appropriately so. And listen, she's never taken a step back. She's moved forward every single start. 53, 63, 75, 80, her buyer speed figures for those 4 career efforts. So again, hard to really knock her form. And remember, the other X factor here is when you talk about stakes races in Louisiana, outside of the Derby and Oaks races, you're not switching off Lasix. So she has used Lasix to this point. She's going to remain on Lasix. So I just can't really make a credible case for Thrill Seeker or for What's Love. And I think part of it is because Bracken Papa has a really nice running style where she doesn't need the lead, but she has good speed. She can sit close to the pace. There should be at least a little bit of speed in this race between What's Love and Thrill Seeker, and she's demonstrated that she can track them down just fine, and it seems like going longer is what this filly likes to do. So going to be hard to get around that one. Now, a horse that I would use underneath and a way to maybe make a little bit of money in this race, if you're looking to play this race vertically, you're not going to make a lot of money if you use the favorite up top and use one of the second choices underneath an exacta. That's going to be pretty minimal payoffs. The number 4 Fade to Gold at 8-1 for Tom Amos, who just recently announced his retirement. Obviously, we wish Tom the best in his retirement and look forward to seeing him around the track, both down at Fairgrounds as well as maybe up in the Saratoga this summer. Always like seeing him on Saratoga Live. And number 4 Fade to Gold, though, with BJ Hernandez up on the mount and with Brian up. This horse finished 3rd last time out in that stakes race to Bracken Papa and Thrill Seeker. I thought showed at least a little bit of interest in this race before fading late, going a mile. Maybe this horse is more dangerous going 6 furlongs, and the horse broke its maiden on the turf, actually, but I think has run some better races on the dirt ultimately. It's a Bolt Doro. I don't know. This horse is at least interesting enough to throw in underneath. This horse feels like one that's going to just kind of keep on running in some ways and keep to the task. And if the number 2 draws off and wins impressively, as I think she will, this is a horse that might just run up into something second and third, and it might do it at a little bit of a price. So Fade to Gold for me, more of an underneath, played 8-1, but one to consider near exactas, trifectas. All right, well, let's go to race number 3 on the card. We're back in the maiden ranks, $75,000 maiden special weight for 3-year-olds, going a mile and a 16th on the dirt. And folks, I'm trying double entendre for the 3rd time. I like this horse in debut. I like this horse second time out. Now we're going 3rd time out. Listen, 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. If the horse doesn't win on Saturday, I'm done. I got to write a breakup letter. I got to write a breakup note to the horse. Here's another Cherie DeVaux horse getting blinkers at it. This is a horse that has shown 0 speed in his first 2 career starts. Does that sound like a horse we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show? Golden Tempo, maybe? Yeah. A little bit of an issue here with Cherie's barn, where some of these horses are just not getting out of the gate very well and not showing any early speed. It's a tap it out of an Empire Maker mare. Distance not going to be an issue. Blinkers coming on. Jose Ortiz remains on the mount. In debut, that was a weirdly run race, I remember. And that was a race that, I remember that race because it was a very heavily hyped race because you had Mojicar in that effort. You had Guns Aloud for Brad Cox. You had a few really big horses in that race. And it was a little disappointing. And the horse knocked it off one for Steve Asmussen at a decent price at 8-1. But that horse came back to win as a 1-9 favorite against $125,000 allowance optional claimers. Then Trouble Calling finished second at 8-1 price for Greg Foley that day. Well, that horse came back and won gate to wire impressively next time out with a 91 buyer speed figure. So that was a productive race. Now, Mojicar is another Cherie horse who came back next start, didn't really, put it together, finished 3rd again. So, interesting. That I remember that debut very, very well. Last time out, double entendre, again, at the back of the pack, and you go look at the running lines of that race. The race was won in gate to wire fashion. The second place horse, Kells, who made up a little bit of ground, was sitting basically a tracking trip. So, double entendre did all of the tough running coming from all the way in the back and shows interest in passing horses, just needs to get off a little bit better and not give himself so much to do. So 5-2, I know it's a short price. I'm going to give this horse one more chance because I just absolutely love the way this one's been working. I love the equipment change. If this horse hadn't had an equipment change, I would be against. The equipment change gives me a reason. I'm going to try one more time. And that's kind of something I do in handicapping where I go, if something doesn't change with this horse next time out, I'm kind of done with this horse. But now you get something changed. And you go, okay, maybe I'll give this horse one more shot. So 5-2 on double entendre is where I will go as my top selection. And part of it is the number 5 Marauder, who's 3-1 in your second choice. I know ABGR, that's my motto, always bet gun runner. And this is a gun runner for Steve Asmussen. My concern is that this one likes the slop more than this one likes the dry track. It's a little bit of my worry. And that's something that really sticks out like a sore thumb in the running line. So that's a little bit of an issue for me with that one. But listen, let's talk about a little bit of a price. And that's the number 2 Regal Star, 12-1, the essential quality for Whit Beckman with Ben Curtis aboard. I do like this one quite a bit, actually. And this is siblings have had some success. So good female family, not the most dominant female family, but a female family that wins at the lower levels. I like essential quality. And this is a horse that I like what I see out of this horse, meaning the horse showed some speed in debut at 6 furlongs and just ultimately faded. I love what Whit's doing here. We're stretching out. That's what we should be doing with essential qualities. Average winning distance, 7.3 furlongs. And that's particularly notable because essential quality is a young sire. And what do young sires tend to do? They tend to have a lot of winners at 5.5, 6, 6.5 furlongs because that's where their first crop is all running. So to see that essential quality already has an average winning distance of 7.3 furlongs, that's particularly impressive. So you like to see those essential qualities stretch out. I love that this horse showed speed in debut, at least sprinting. Now you figure this horse is going to show very good speed second time out. especially now that you're going long against horses that are not as naturally fast out of the gate, you can stretch out. You're not having to run very aggressive fractions. You're going to be able to sustain yourself. You're going to have a better overall fitness level in this second start. You've had 3 additional works come in since that last race. And oh, by the way, you get Ben Curtis up on the mount. I bring that up because few are better riding on the lead at Fairgrounds than Ben Curtis. I think Ben's going to be aggressive, get this horse up there pretty close to the front, and just try to go all the way around because there is not much speed in this race. And I think it's set up for a horse like Regal Star to get the win. So I really like Regal Star 12-1. This is a huge horse at a big price that I would absolutely be using. I will give a shout to the number 1 Paul's Recovery, Kenny McPeak horse, Independence Hall, $310,000. Folks, you don't see a lot of $300,000 plus Independence Halls, particularly coming out of the Keeneling September 2024 sales. So that is something where Kenny's got something with this horse because there's not much on the page that tells me this horse had a huge hip and vetted really well and had the physicals that Kenny likes to look for, which is a big hip and a good walk. And so I'm very interested in that Independence Hall, but I think he's going to need a second start. I think he's going to need a start under his belt. But Paul's Recovery at 8-1, that could be a Kenny McPeak special, if not Saturday, next time out. All right, well, let's go to race number 4 on the card, which is another $75,000 maiden special weight for 3-year-old and up, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And again, going to try to go for a little bit of a price because there are some chalkier sequences here. And going to try to beat the number 5 Mokir, who's part of the Tagermeen Racing Group. Tagermeen Racing has had some high-priced horses. Some of them have been very, very good. Some of them have not. So it's a little bit of a hit or a miss. Brad Cox has got a horse, Rock Music, who's a nice enough-looking horse, is the half the book review. But it comes out of a little bit of an older mare, and there hasn't been a lot of precocity outside of book review with that one. And so ultimately, like I said, I landed on the number 3, Great Moment, for Greg Foley, 6-1 on the morning line. This one has had a few shots at it, but what I really like about this horse is you saw this horse run against, kind of a 0-for-6 and is kind of, was running basically the same numbers, but was running as a, young, 2 and 3-year-old, and then went to the bench for quite a while, went to the bench for 11 months and came back in February and came back as a completely different horse. Ran an 85 buyer speed figure, ran a huge second place effort, I thought, that day. Now we're second back from that long layoff. I think we can continue to move forward here. I think Great Moment at 6-1. If this horse can run anything like the 85 buyer speed figure, they're all running for second place. And I'll be honest, looking over this field, he could regress to about a 75 and it's not going to be an issue. So I think this is a horse 6-1. We'll see if we end up getting it, but I like this horse quite a bit in this particular race. Now, a horse that I'm a big fan of is the half to Tenma, who's running in this race. You remember Tenma, nice Bob Baffert filly from last year, who was on the Oaks Trail and ran in the Oaks, ran 4th that day, really ran Lacara into the ground and kind of forced her into submission in that race, set things up for the eventual winner, Good Cheer. But the number 7, Hot Days Ahead, 8-1 on the morning line for Dallas Stewart, Brian Hernandez up on the mount. This one's getting back on the dirt. And I just think is a little bit interesting in this particular spot for Dallas. And I think, again, there are some reasons you can think this horse has been coming out of some nice efforts. You go and look who this horse has been running against. This horse ran against Golden Tempo in that very infamous or famous now maiden special weight race where Golden Tempo came from the clouds and didn't look like, he had any chance at all at the top of the stretch, but got there. Next time out, faded a little bit, but ultimately, that race produced 2 next out winners. That's the Knock It Off Trouble Calling race that I mentioned with the Mojucar and Double Entendre and horses like that. So it was running against some pretty nice runners. Then went to the turf last time out, actually ran pretty decent on the turf. It's a Munnings out of the Tappet mare. I love that cross of Munnings and Tappet. That's been a very effective cross. So like the cross, like the workouts leading up to this one since that February 16th race, I think this one doesn't need a huge step forward to get a little bit better and is going to be coming from running late. But my hope is that there's a little speed with some of these first-time runners, and this one with Brian aboard might just be able to get out there and do a little bit of running late and run up into exactas, trifectas. That's a little bit more of an underneath play for me, but I do very much so like Great Moment, I think, in this spot, particularly if that horse shows the sort of speed he showed last time out. All right, let's go to race number 5 on the card, which is a $20,000 optional claimer for 4-year-old and up, Louisiana breds, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And we're going to go to a horse a little further outside, the number 11 Bandito Deal for trainer Brett Calhoun. And this was a tricky race. I actually spent a lot of time looking at this race. I was looking at the number 6 Free Scrim for Alstall Jr. coming back from a little bit of a layoff, a little bit of a freshening. That horse at 4-1 looks very interesting for sure, and definitely is one to keep in mind. I don't, that horse is definitely interesting. One gate to wire, one tracking off the pace, is stepping up, essentially running against the N2X company now for the first time. I always find that can be a little bit of a hurdle to get over. You can get through the maidens and N1X right away, but then getting to the N2X sometimes can be a little bit tricky and might take a few cracks at it. So definitely looked at that horse, looked at the number 2, actually, Conejo Chapin. I thought that was a little bit of an interesting horse to maybe consider using underneath. Ultimately, though, like I said, I went to a little further outside and went to the number 11 Bandito Deal. And this is a horse that, won the last 2 times out and won against a maiden claiming company, and then stepped up and beat Allowance Company in the state bred competition, going 6 furlongs. I love that this horse has been showing much better speed. You draw the far outside foot post for Brett Calhoun with CJ McMahon up on the mount. I think the last 2 speed figures absolutely put him in this conversation. It does feel like something just clicked the last couple of races. And what is that? Oh, blinkers got added. That's the thing. Look at what this horse had been doing. This horse had been running against largely maiden claiming competition, not really making much of an impression, and more importantly, not getting claimed down at Delta Downs. Now the horse comes up to fairgrounds, and Brett puts the blinkers on, and he got lucky because that horse didn't get claimed. He puts the blinkers on, and the horse ran like a hole in the wind, won by 7. Then blinkers stay on. The horse steps up next time out and is 6-1. Didn't get a lot of respect necessarily at the windows off that maiden claiming victory, and the horse wins again and beats Mr. Banderas, who's in this race, the number 10, who's at 4-1. For Tom Amos. So 6-1 for Bandito Deal seems like a really good price and a really good value. And if he could back up those last 2 figures, and the equipment change might have made all the difference in the world with the blinkers 2 back, I think that horse is pretty legitimate and has an absolute, little bit of value in this particular race. Now, another horse that's interesting is the number 7 G Wildcat. Maybe this horse is outclassed, but the running lines would say he's not, because this horse has run against state-bred optional claiming 20s before and more than held his own, won a couple of those, ran second before. This is a horse that just likes to win. 8 for 26 winning, but isolate the last 6-7 races. Going back from this previous race, won a claiming 12-5, won another claiming 12-5, second in a claiming 12-5, second in a claiming 20, second in an optional claiming 20, first in an optional claiming 20, third by a length in an optional claiming 20. Those are your last 5-6 races. This horse is 4th back from over a year-long layoff, over a year and a half layoff, or no, over a year, just barely a year layoff. And seems to be getting better and better and better at every single start for Paul Duhon. Axel Concepcion up on the mount. The horse can come from off the pace, sit right up on it. Whatever you want to do, this horse can do. G Wildcat at 12-1. I know we're making the jump from state-bred claiming 12-5s to the state-bred optional claiming 20s. But again, looking in the past, this horse absolutely fits in those spots and has run well in those spots. Admittedly, this was a while ago, but I think he's getting right back into that form. So I know he's an 8-year-old, but G Wildcat at 12-1, a little bit of an interesting play, I think, in race number 5. All right, well, let's go to another stakes race, which is the Tom Benson Memorial. And fun race, going 1.16 miles on the turf for 4-year-old and up fillies and mares. And you have a few interesting runners in here. You have Wade to Be Marie for Eddie Keneally. Eddie has taken over this horse for Rob Atras. This is a horse that likes the fairgrounds, 3 wins and 5 career starts there. That's always a real positive. I actually won this race last year for the Atras barn. Louis Saya is up on the mount. Eddie doesn't have maybe the best numbers coming off trainer changes, and this horse hasn't run since November. So I am a little hesitant about that. This is a horse that has never won off the bench before, didn't win in debut, had another layoff before, ran third in the Grade 3 Pebbles, then came off the bench last time out in the Long Island, finished 5th. Now is coming off the bench again. So this is a horse that does like to win, but hasn't necessarily fired his best race, or her best race, I should say, off the bench. I think as a result, I'm willing to try to play against a little bit in this spot. Certainly the number 6, Sky to Sea for Cherie DeVaux, Sea to Sky, I should say, for Cherie DeVaux. Very interesting horse, finished 3rd in the Hago Pop, but this is a horse that's 1 for 11. And hasn't won since coming to North America. At some point at 7-2, that's just too short of a price for me to take on a horse like that. I took a long look at the number 7, Gavia, who I've liked before in the past, but ultimately landed on the number 1, Ready for Cheryl. 7-2 for Dallas Stewart. Brian Hernandez Jr. up on the mount. This one's coming in from the Roger Atfield barn and had been running up at Woodbine primarily, but ran in the Grade 2 Pegasus World Cup Filly and Mare Turf Invitational. Finished second to last in that race, was very much so outclassed by horses like Destino d'Oro and Crevel d'Oro and moving on up and horses like that. But nevertheless was running against really strong company. This is a Grade 2 winner up in Woodbine and absolutely fits. And more importantly, I thought ran a good enough race down at Gulfstream Park that I go, I can trust this Woodbine form in getting a little bit back, second back from a little bit of a freshening. Has been working out nicely for Dallas down at Fairgrounds, gets the inside rails, going to save all the ground. Brian Hernandez Jr., we know he knows how to save all the ground, right? From Mystic Dan and the Kentucky Derby. But this is one of those horses that I think if this horse can run back to that 85, 86, 87, 88 number, more than solid in terms of a legitimate win bet, is going to be coming from a little off the pace. So maybe is a bit pace dependent. And certainly the number 2, Sophie's Cruiser, is going to be that dictating speed up front. But you have a horse like Cupid's Crush, who is my value play in this race at 5-1. I think this is a horse that's really interesting too. You look at those last couple of starts. Listen, this horse runs back to what she did in the Marie Krantz against Maduro, ran a 96 by her speed figure that day. The horse is going to win for fun if she runs a 96. She's got a couple of races in her back pocket that are more than good enough to blitz this field. She's another one who's going to be up on the lead. So I do expect at least an honest pace with those two up there. And I think it's going to allow for a horse like Ready for Cheryl to make that run from the back with Brian aboard. I just think this horse, again, has faced maybe some better competition and a little bit of a tougher class the last few times out. Again, Pegasus Filly Mare Turf, but before that was running against Breath Away, Caitlin Her Greatness. Before that, She Feels Pretty. Those are tough horses to be running against. So I think this one just has a little bit of a class edge over a few others in this particular race. And like I said, my value play in this one, the number 5, Cupid's Crush for Hugh Robertson, Marcelino Pedroza Jr. up on the mount. And again, this one just has good speed. I don't see a load of speed in this race, so this horse should be sitting a pretty comfortable trip up on the front end. The horse can pass horses. Has done it in the past, did it back at Canterbury in the ladies Canterbury Stakes, and was able to sit kind of a third place trip and then move up and get the win that day. So this horse can pass others. I think it's going to do a lot of good work up on the front end. 5-1 feels like a very honest price for this Minnesota bred, but I think Cupid Crush looks like a really good horse. And any of those last 2 races more than puts her in the win conversation. So for me, 5-1 is really good value on a horse that might very well get overlooked a little bit because of her pedigree and her connections. Let's go to race number 7, a $75,000 maiden special weight for 3-year-olds, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And we got the number 9, Not to Worry, at 4-1 as my top selection for Cherie DeVaux. Jose Ortiz aboard. And there is a lot to like about this runner. I love the fact that you have a full sibling, Via Della Spiga, who won in debut. And that horse, again, we're now the full sibling here for Cherie, Leal Stables owned. I love this one because a lot of times, and I learned this from my colleague Kaylee Shapiro, who has her own mare and an active breeding operation, and she'll always say the second foal is usually a little bit better. You know, the first foal can sometimes be undersized for a mare, and it's the second foal that a lot of times you really see that nice progression and maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit more complete. And it's promising to me that the first foal from this mare, Madame Milan, got the win in debut. Now we went back to the same sire, Street Sense. So, hey, let's not break something that's already working. And I think this second foal might be a little bit better. I love the workout pattern on this horse. Really love the way this horse has just been working like a machine in the mornings. No bullets or anything like that, but just clockwork. 48 and 2, 48 and 2, 49 and 2, 1 minute and 2, 48 flat, 48 and 2. I love the 48 flat gate work. It shows me the horse has a little bit of speed. Jose's up on the mount. I think this one at 4-1, very nice horse that I'm eager to put in my vertical and horizontal plays on Saturday. Now, there are some other really nice horses in this race. A lot of first-timers. I thought Eddie Keneally's horse, who's the dialed in, was a little bit interesting. The number 4, Radar Lock. Steve Asmussen's got a nice practical joke with Louis Saez up. The number 3, Armet, who I thought looked a little bit interesting. Ultimately, though, as a value play, I went to the number 11, Mr. All In, who's another essential quality. And it is the first foal out of the mare Ain't No Elmers. And this is a nice mare, though. This was a mare that was, not quite a stakes winning mare, but was stakes place, was great at stakes place, actually finished second in the Miss Preakness. And so you have the distance influence of essential quality, but you have the speed influence there of a dam who is a sprinter. Brett Calhoun, again, Isaac Castillo. I like the way this one's been having a lot of steady works. I just think this one makes a little bit of sense. Draws to the far outside, should be able to get kind of a first run at things, and Isaac should be able to judge the break and kind of slot over a little bit. I just think this horse, again, I said, working well. Brett Calhoun knows how to get him ready first time out, and I just think at 10-1 is really good value for nice pedigree with a horse that, again, the female won her first 2 career starts. So you love to see that sort of pedigree, and you love to see that sort of female precocity, at least I do, when looking at first-time starters. So Mr. All In, a little bit of a value play at 10-1 for me in this very competitive maiden special weight race. Let's go to the back half of the card. Let's go to race number 8, the Costa Rising Stakes. And going to try to beat the favorite in this race, the number 1, 9 Part. Nice horse for Joe Felks, who, oh, by the way, is winning 73% of his entries. Hello, 73% of his entries. The guy's winning 8 for 11. That's incredible with Jose Ortiz aboard. Obviously like this horse quite a bit, but I do worry about this horse drawing the inside rail. This horse draws the inside rail. I know the horse has won from the inside rail before, but still draws the inside rail in a race where this horse does not have great early speed. It's going to be boxed in, I have a feeling. I just worry a little bit about the trip with 9 Part. As a result, I'm going to go and try to beat this one with a horse that I thought ran a perfectly good race against 9 Part last time out, and that was the number 5, I should say, Candy Monsieur Candy, 9-2 in the morning line for Larry Ravelli and Jareth Loveberry. Now, if there's one thing I know about Larry Ravelli and Jareth Loveberry, they like to get their horses out up on the front end, and I would imagine that's exactly what you're going to see. I love that Jareth has a little bit of history with this horse. Actually, rode this horse when this was in the Alice Cohn barn, and went to Larry's barn last time out, ran in that optional claiming 35 for state breds, and finished second to 9 Part. But more importantly, I remember this race, the horse had acted up quite a bit leading up to the post parade and getting into the gate. And I'm eager to see how this one has behaved leading up to this race. I always do worry a little bit, particularly in sprints, when a horse is rowdy in the post, because it just ends up exerting so much more energy for them to then put into the race. And so not surprising, this one faded a little bit late. 9 Part got stronger late in the race, etc. But I like this one, can sit off the pace, can go straight to the front, can do a few different things. Larry Ravelli, second start in that barn. I'll take a chance with that. And 9-2, I think very fair price for the number 5, Monsieur Candy. Now, a big price that I really love, and I really love this horse, is Dr. My Eyes. 20-1 on the morning line. I don't think we get 20-1 because I think a lot of people are going to see what I see, which is Grant Forrester's horse, Louis Saez up on the mount, taking over from Marcelino Pedroza Jr. This horse has outstanding speed, draws to the outside, third back in the form cycle, and nearly beat Open Company against $125,000 allowance optional claimers at Fairgrounds last time out. So now we're dropping back into State Bred Company, where this horse broke its maiden and did so first start for the Forester barn and first time with Lasix. Now we keep Lasix. We draw the outside. You got Louis Saez. You got a horse that's probably going to be up in the lead in a turf sprint. This is a Maxfield? Are you kidding me? This is a horse I absolutely love, and this is a horse that has a nice female family. You look at a horse like Eye of the Pharaoh, the half sibling, won the first 2 starts and was a nice Louisiana bred. So I think this horse absolutely is live at 20-1. I'm including this horse in a pick 6 or pick 5, any sort of horizontal sequence. I don't think we get 20-1. I think we maybe get half that price. I think they're just way off on the morning line here, but I think Dr. My Eyes at 20-1. Wow. I love this horse in this particular spot. Really excited by this one. Love the fact the second place horse from the maiden breaker came back to win next time out as well. And again, just faced much tougher competition last time out against high-level allowance optional claimers, an Open Company, and now dropping back in against Louisiana bred. So for me, the number 12, Dr. My Eyes. Oh, love this horse at 20-1. All right, let's go to the New Orleans Classic. This is a doozy of a race. I mean, this is a real doozy of a race. Everybody's going to want to play Touch Upon a Star. Understandably so. This is everybody's favorite Louisiana bred, $1.7 million in career earnings. I love Touch Upon a Star. 6-5 on the morning line. Jeff Delhomme. There's a lot to like here. All right. This is a horse that loves to win, 20 for 27 winning, 6 for 8 winning at Fairgrounds, won this race last year, 5 for 6 winning at 1 1/8. Is getting a new jockey for the first time in 26 races. That is notable that Marcelino Pedroza Jr. is taking over. And we'll see. The horse has beaten Open Company before. You know, obviously, like I said, won this New Orleans Classic, which was a 5-horse field last year, beat Sierra Leone and beat Hall of Fame in that race, okay? Didn't run particularly well in the Sexton Mile, but that was over a sloppy track, though the horse has won over a sloppy track a few times. My bigger concern is this horse draws a little further inside, and there is a load of speed in this race. Accelerize is fast and is getting the blinkers put on. Life and Times is really fast and doesn't need blinkers to be really fast. And even Westwood on the inside, right next, is fast. I worry there's a lot of speed. Now, I know Touch Upon a Star can come from off the pace a little bit, but usually likes to be really close, get comfortable, and just have these kind of ideal trips. I'm going to try to play against the horse, okay? I just think there's a lot of speed. I think there's a lot of speed. I don't know about I know Accelerize is cross-entered, so that is a little bit of a question mark. I think he's in the Essex handicap, so that's a little bit of a question mark there if he ends up running. I think he probably does end up running here instead of Oaklawn. I would just guess because Johnny V's listed us up on the mount here. Blinkers are coming on for Accelerize. But for me, I'm going to try Not This Boy. Another horse I really like a lot. 9 career starts, never missed the board. 8 for 9 in the exacta with 4 wins for Dan Cowens, coming off a win in the Tenacious Stakes over Sir Graylin and Stowaway. A little bit of I remember that Tenacious Stakes because Just a Touch was supposed to run in that and scratch. He would have lost inevitably because Just a Touch just infuriates me like that. But this is a horse that I'm just really, I think can come from off the pace a little bit better and can let things develop a little bit more in front of him. You go back and look at that allowance race over a sloppy track at Ellis Park, was able to sit a little further back that day and then make a run. Doesn't need to be up in the lead. Certainly does have good enough speed to get to the lead for Jose Ortiz. But I just think not this time. He also, Not This Boy, just draws a little further to the outside too. And I think that's beneficial in this particular race. He's got the buyer speed figures to back it up. He's got 3 triple-digit buyers, so he's fast enough to run this race. The 1 1/8, we'll see. But not this time. They could get you just about anything. So I'm not too worried about the extra half a furlong in this particular spot. I think Not This Boy, interesting horse, is my top pick. Now, my value play in this one, Life and Times, 6-1 for Todd Pletcher. Do we get 6-1 with Flavien Prat aboard? I don't know. The Lasix is coming back on. That might have been the biggest factor, because this horse looked like a monster in the first 2 starts up here in New York, running at Belmont at the Big A and Aqueduct, running a 104 and 100 Beyer speed figure. Then goes down to South Florida, runs in the Florida Red Hooper, switches off Lasix, and runs against Knightsbridge. Well, Knightsbridge is a freak of nature. Okay, that horse then won the Gulfstream Park Mile after that and earned a 112 Beyer speed figure and won by 11 1/4 lengths while being geared down in the stretch. So getting dueled into submission by Knightsbridge and finishing 3rd is not the end of the world, okay? Now we get the Lasix back on. Flavien Prat sees fit to come aboard. That is notable. This horse keeps firing off bullets. They're stretching this horse out to 1 1/8 miles. Todd must know something. I mean, again, Todd must see, hey, this is a horse that they think is going to be better going long, and just ran up against a freak, going 1 1/8 miles here, 6-1. Listen, if you can get anywhere near 6-1, I would absolutely use this horse in a lot of different ways and bet this horse. So Life and Times, a shocking value play in this particular race. Let's go to race number 10 on the card, the Muniz Memorial. This one's going 1 1/8 miles on the turf. And for the 4-year-old and up crew, I'm going to go to the Chad Brown horse here, Program Trading. You know, I've tried to beat a lot of favorites in some of these different races, and this one just feels like a race where I really like Program Trading, and particularly because Laganos is a horse that I typically always play against. And I played against him as my top selection last time out. I used him in my late pick 5, and I'll probably use him again in my late pick 5. A little bit maybe more of a defensive play. And he won that Fairgrounds Stakes, the grade 3 last time out, over Montador and Capuna and horses like that. But my issue with Laganos is he's not exactly a win machine. And especially when you get him outside of Kentucky Downs, he hasn't really been a win machine. The horse has been very, very good on the turf at Kentucky Downs, and I think is 2 for 15, if I'm not mistaken, outside of Kentucky Downs on the turf. So now I got to take 2-1 on Laganos in this spot. I just don't love that. Now, that said, you go to Program Trading, who has not won since that very lengthy layoff from 2024 to 2025, but was extremely talented leading up to this, and ran in the Pegasus World Cup turf and finished 5th that day, flattened out a little bit in the stretch. Ultimately was bested by Test Score and One Stripe and Almendaras, etc. Chad Brown taking this one here, I think, is notable because of the L, and that is Lasix. This horse gets Lasix back on. Flavien Prat stays up on the mount. Look at what this horse did with Lasix first 2 career starts. Win. Now, that was a long time ago, admittedly. That was all the way back in 2023. But I think this horse, the fact that Chad is still entering this horse in stakes races, tells me, hey, maybe we give this horse a little bit of a class break, and maybe we let this horse get Lasix, and good things can happen. Remember, this horse nearly won the Bernard Baruch, a listed stakes race, off the bench from a year and 2 months or 14-month layoff. So this horse can absolutely get the job done. Nearly won the Grade 1 Turf Mile over Rhetorical back at Keeneland. This is a horse that's run some really good races. Now is second back from a little bit of a freshening. Lasix added, Flavien up, draws outside so the horse can kind of break easily and get into a nice stride. I like Program Trading in this spot at a relatively short price. Now, this is only a 7-horse field, and I didn't love the number 1 Chase the Crown as a value play or the number 6 Faber. So the next best price for me is the number 5 Tom's Magic for Michael Stidham. This is a nice horse, and this is a horse, sounds a little bit like Not This Boy. 9 career starts, 8 times in the exacta with 4 wins. Louis Saya is up, second back from a little bit of a freshening. Ran second by a head to Salamis by a neck in the Hollywood Derby in the Grade 1, so nearly got a Grade 1 on his own. Stepped forward in the Tampa Bay against Quattro Cento and moved forward on the speed figures and got a 91 that day. But here's the thing. Quattro Cento just controlled everything up front and just basically went and did go gate to wire. And Tom's Magic was kind of running up against it the entire time. Now you get Louis Saez hopping aboard That's a real positive, I think. I like this Son of Justify, Ontario bred. I think this one makes some sense in this particular spot. Tom's Magic at 5-1, a horse that I think just newly turned 4 years old is going to continue to get better throughout this 4-year-old campaign. I already love to see that next progression from the speed figures in the Tampa Bay stakes. And so I think Tom's Magic at 5-1, absolutely a horse. Another small step forward puts this horse in contention and should get at least a little bit of pace to run into with a horse like I'd Rather Be Blessed in this spot. So going to be fun to see. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Louis is a little bit more aggressive and tries to get this horse sitting kind of a second, third place trip and try to get first run on a horse like I'd Rather Be Blessed. All right, well, let's go to the Oaks, the Fairground Oaks, which has been an incredibly influential race. And no, it's not the Devona Dale. I just screwed up and didn't change the slide. And so the Fairground Oaks is, and this is going to drive me nuts. So hold on, everybody, because I'm going to pause it and we're going to come back with the corrected slide. And we're back. And I feel so much better about this updated slide because it's now the correct race of the Fairground Oaks, 1 mile and a 16th on the dirt. And I got Bella Ballerina. And I just think she is such a versatile horse. I'm a big fan of hers. I have been since the start. She's the half to Pretty Mischievous who won the Kentucky Oaks. Admittedly, Pretty Mischievous did not win the Fairground Oaks prior to winning the Kentucky Oaks. But for me, Bella Ballerina, what I love about her is there should be at least a little bit of pace in this race with Maximum Offer, who actually might run up in Turfway, I think is more likely. But Love Your Neighbor is going to be forwardly placed. Love and Trust might be pretty forwardly placed. Bella Ballerina's got great speed too, and she could just go straight to the front as she did in the Rachel Alexandra, but she could also sit off the pace as she did in the Goldenrod and in her debut at 6 furlongs. So she can pass horses and come from off the pace. She can go to the front. Brendan said she's on her toes. Second start off the bench. She was a little fatigued and got a little tired, was switched back to her wrong lead, if I'm not mistaken, late in the stretch in that Rachel Alexandra. And I just think that she is one who is only continuing to get better. And I don't think they're going to get too cute with her here in terms of like, oh, let's try to teach her something, because we already know she can rate. We know she can go straight to the front. So just let her run her race. And I also think she's a young horse still, only 3 career starts. This will be number 4. Yes, I know they're already in the starting gate for the Oaks, but I don't think they get too cute here. I think they kind of want to have this horse, maybe not cranked up, but Brendan said she's on her toes. She's ready to run. I think she continues to move forward in a big way. So I like Bella Ballerina. I know she's the favorite, but she's a horse that I feel confident singling in this spot, and that's how I'm going to kind of be building around in my late pick 5 sequence. I understand why some people like Life of Joy, a horse that certainly, lost to Bella Ballerina, 2 back in the Goldenrod, but had a terrible, terrible go of things that day with Irataboard. Flavian rode this horse last time out, lost to Zanny in the Suncoast, is training well, is a daughter of gun runner, all things I like. And my concern is I just don't know how good that Suncoast is outside of Zanny, because Cadabra came back to run a nothing race in the Virginia Oaks, and Life of Joy beat her by 3 lengths. That's good. She should have. But again, I just wonder how good was anybody running behind those top 2 that day. Now, if Life of Joy wins, then that really says something about Zanny. And that kind of thrusts her into a little bit of a different stratosphere, perhaps, in terms of those discussions. But I think Bella Ballerina has every opportunity to move forward. She's moved forward in every start of her career, 70, 80, 84. I think we could see another big step forward here for a horse that's going to have improved fitness, has been working out great for Brendan down there at Fairgrounds. So big fan of this filly. And the other part of Life of Joy is she's largely run the same race every time, 73, 75, 75, 78. We got to see that next step from her before I kind of take her at too short of a price at 4-1. Love Your Neighbor. I listen, I love this filly. Maybe Saturday's finally her day, but 4 straight second place finishes. Last one even was with the blinkers added. It's just hard for me to get behind her as a win contender here. She's a horse I'd absolutely be using in my exactas. I also do wonder if she's a little bit like the filly Hit Parade, who we saw run in the Virginia Oaks and didn't run particularly well. I wonder at what point does Love Your Neighbor maybe max out? I don't know if she's kind of And I say that because she's taken these very small incremental steps forward in every start. 77, 81, 80, 83. Okay, we're kind of running around the same number, maybe getting a little bit better, but I wonder if that's just kind of who she is. And as these other fillies take a big step forward, I don't know if she's good enough to move with them. Maybe she's a little bit like Chip Honcho, and she can move forward in that next big effort like he did in the Risen Star against Paladin. We'll see. But my value play in this one is the number 2, Newtown Pike, 8-1 for Lindsay Schultz. Kaylee Shapiro loves this filly, and I'm a big fan of this one too. Kaylee's using this one as her top pick in this race, and I applaud her for it. She's my second choice here, a top value play. I like her a lot. Talk about a filly that gets better in every start. 61, 72, 81 by her speed figures, second by a neck last time out in that Martha Washington to search party. I think Newtown Pike absolutely has an opportunity to continue to move forward here. There should be at least a decent amount of speed in this race for her to run into. And she had relatively pedestrian fractions at Oaklawn Park in that Martha Washington, 113-1 to the 6 furlongs. I think they probably go a little faster than that. I mean, you look at what Bella Ballerina ran in going a mile and a 16th at Fairgrounds last time out. She was going 111-2. So they're going to give Newtown Pike a little bit of pace to run into. Daughter of Mackenzie. One of the things Kaylee pointed out, and it's true, if you look at this filly's page, there is not much on her page on the female family. And suddenly you got a decent sire in Mackenzie. And what's really something else is the female page, the female side of the family has gotten winners, but have gotten them from nothing sires. And so I love the fact that Newtown Pike, now you get a decent sire like Mackenzie paired up with this very productive female family who has done well in lower level stakes races with really minimal help from the top of the pedigree lines. And now you suddenly get a little bit of help from the top of the pedigree lines. I don't know. Lindsay's horse seems pretty live to me at 8-1 in this particular spot, like Newtown Pike, quite a bit. Well, let's go to the Louisiana Derby. Mile and 3/16 on the dirt for your 3-year-olds. And I have gone back and forth on this race a bunch. When I first looked at it, I thought Chip Honcho was going to be my top choice. There was a couple of moments where I thought about Golden Tempo as my top choice. I thought about using Bob Baffert as my top choice. Ultimately, the horse that I thought I was going to be dead against in this race ended up being my top choice, and that is the number 9 Emerging Market. First of all, let me preface this by saying you're not going to get 6-1. You're not going to get 4-1. You might not even get 2-1. This is probably going to be your favorite in the race, in my opinion. So I'm not picking this horse because I think he's 6-1. He's not. I'm picking this horse because I think he's the best horse in the race. He ran a very good race in debut. And I know Power Shift came back to run poorly in the Tampa Bay Derby, but Emerging Market finished up really strong that day and didn't get the easiest trip. I think this horse has much better speed than maybe what he was even able to show in that debut. Breaking from the far outside, look for Flavian Pratt, who stays on the mount, to really get a little bit of speed into this horse and sit pretty close to this pace with Chip Honcho. Chad is not great with these types. This is not a Chad Brown move. Chad Brown typically takes the long road with these types of runners. He usually gets them into, an allowance race next start or a listed stakes race. He usually lets them go a little slow. Canaletto, we saw go from maiden to a stakes race, ran, I thought, a competitive third at the Tampa Bay Derby, a really tough race. Didn't have the easiest trip that day. Emerging Market, 97 buyer speed figure, just towers over the field. I mean, that's the thing, is that the 97 is just so much better than what anybody else has run. Golden Tempo, who's 7-2's career best is an 84. Chip Honcho ran a 92 last time, but prior to that was an 82 as his career best. So the 97 just sticks out like a sore thumb. And yes, it came with Lasix. And over the last 5 years, Chad is 0 for 15 switching off Lasix on dirt races in their second starts. Not great. Not great, Bob. So it's one of those things where there are some reasons to be against this horse, but I just keep going back to the talent that this horse has and displayed in debut. I think this one for Klaravich Stables makes a lot of sense, and I'm not going to try to overthink this one. The fastest horse in the race, I think, gets the job done. There's plenty of statistics I can give you for why you should play against Emerging Market. The far outside post is a little bit of a question mark. Horse making its second start is a little bit of a question mark. We did see a horse like Kings Barnes a couple of years ago for Pletcher win this race in only his third career start. So we have seen young horses win the Louisiana Derby. So that's something to keep in mind. Ultimately, I'm not sure I'm just not sure about Chip Honcho at a mile and 3/16. That's a long home stretch. I know he looks like lone speed. I don't know if he gets alone up front or if some people keep him company, particularly the number 8 Easterly. I wonder if that horse maybe goes a little bit. Even Pavlovian from the inside rail now with the blinkers added, if he tries to send a little bit. The real X factor in this race is Golden Tempo for Cherie. Will the blinkers work? Because this horse has shown less than 0 speed and less than 0 interest in being fast out of the gate. Also, over the last 5 years, Cherie is 0 for 16 first-time blinkers with 3-year-olds on dirt. Not exactly a winning move for her in these spots. If this horse can show better speed, Golden Tempo should love the long home stretch at Fairgrounds and the mile and 3/16. There is so much to like about this horse. It's just whether or not he gives himself too much to do or whether the blinkers mitigate some of that late turn of foot and late run that he has traditionally shown. A horse that I think is going to run a lot better than I think a lot of people think is the number 7 Blacksmith. This is a huge female family. This is a female family of Belmont Stakes winners, okay? Liam's map out of a Curlin mare. 3 Belmont Stakes winners on this horse's page, okay? 6-1 on the morning line for Bob Baffert. I know people make a big deal. The Desert Gate outworked him leading up to this race. I don't think this horse is ever going to be that flashy in the mornings. This horse is a grinder. This horse's best race came in the Los Al Futurity, finishing second to Litmus Test. What does the Los Al Futurity and the Louisiana Derby have in common? A long-ass home stretch. Yep. That's what this horse wants. Look at this horse's running lines and look the way he runs. Grinds away. He gets stronger late in a race. He just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming. That's when this horse is at his best. And oh, by the way, his best race came going the longest at a mile and a 16th, and it came off Lasix. He actually got slower switching on Lasix. I think this horse is ready for a big effort. Florent Giroux stays aboard for Bob Baffert. Flo has ridden at Fairgrounds before, knows the track well. Baffert, obviously, shipping in to Louisiana, doesn't do it very often. But I think this horse is 6-1, and I think you might get closer to 6-1 on Blacksmith. I feel like it's a really nice play, a horse that I know just broke his maiden, but I think can continue to move forward. I think it's going to get only better going long, and I think that's actually why Bob chose this particular spot, because it's the longest of the prep races. I think he wants this horse going as long as possible, and this is a 1.25 mile, 1.5 mile type of a horse. I think Blacksmith runs a real big race on Saturday. All right, well, let's wrap up with a couple of maiden special weight races to finish out the card. That's right, we got the Louisiana Derby, and then we got 2 more races. So we got $75,000 maiden special weight race going a mile on the turf for 3-year-old fillies. And folks, I could only pick one horse in this race, and that is the number 6, Not That Simple. Why is that? Well, it's a Cherie DeVaux horse on the turf with Flavien Prat up on the mount. Sure, all of those things make sense. It's a Not This Time, always very, effective. It's out of a mare who's produced some nice runners, but 0 for 4 first time out. You go, what are you doing? This is the the full sibling, I should say. The full sibling to Simplification. Now, anybody who knows me and knows me well knows that I loved Simplification. Simplification was my Derby horse, and everybody thought I was nuts. Everybody thought I was the dumbest person on the planet. I remember Sarah El-Badwi was in the paddock at the Kentucky Derby that day. We were friends. We weren't working together yet, but we were friends from just collaborating online. And she sent me a picture of Simplification. She goes, "Here's your horse. I think you're nuts for liking this horse." And he ran such a big race in the Kentucky Derby and ran a 4th. Won the Fountain of Youth, won the Mucho Macho Man, was a horse I always loved. In my office, I have the saddlecloth of his from the Harlan's Holiday. I love Simplification. When I saw the full sibling to Simplification was running in this race for Cherie DeVaux, I was like, all right, well, I'm done handicapping. I'm betting this horse. Sometimes it's that simple. Now, listen, there's also the element of all the things I mentioned. It's a Cherie DeVaux horse on the turf, first time out with Flavien Prat aboard at 9-2. It's a Not This Time out of a Candy Ride mare. There's plenty to like, and there's plenty to think the turf is going to be okay for this one. So there's reasons I like this horse beyond being the full siblings of simplification. Oh, by the way, look at the 48 flat gate work 2 back. I love the fact that this horse showed a little bit of speed for a turf horse out of the gate. So that was a really promising work. So there are reasons I like this one, but I had to shout out my boy Simplification, who I absolutely love and adore. Now, a horse that I think is not going to be 6-1 come post time is the number 9, Heavenly Melody for Joe Sharp. And this is a charlatan. These charlatans are really starting to run, folks. The charlatans who, now that his first crop has gotten to 3, they are running and they are winning. And they are doing really well. Now, turf routing, a little bit of a question mark. But this is out of a Malibu Moon mare. And I just think, and a productive one too, who's produced some nice winners, including a stakes winner in Point Doom. I think this horse ran really well in debut, didn't even have the best start, made a huge run to get to the front, and then flattened out and got nabbed at the end at 28-1. Now you're getting 6-1 on this horse. I know that's a big price cut from the debut, but I think 6-1 for Heavenly Melody, good price for this horse. But listen, this is a competitive race. This is a very spready race. You could make a case for the number 1, Determined Dancer. You could make a case for the number 3, Prima Donna. I like that horse last time out, and I think that horse could absolutely move forward for Michael Stidham. So there's a few horses in this race I have my eye on, but I think Heavenly Melody is 6-1, one that I'm definitely including, and not that simple, definitely one I'll be rooting on. All right, well, let's go to the last race on the card, race number 14, and this is a $75,000 maiden special weight for 3-year-old and up. For 3-year-old Louisiana breds going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And I'm not going to overthink this one. Dirty Straight Up is just the fastest horse in the field. Barely got nabbed last time out, going gate to wire. Has the best speed in this race. Breaks from the inside rail. I think Axel Concepcion just sends this one straight to the front, and it's see you later. This horse debuted on the turf, ran on a sloppy track next time out, finally got on a fast track and nearly got the job done. There's not a lot else in this race, in my opinion. I think this is one where Dirty Straight Up gets the win. Now, as a value play, there was a few I looked at. You know, I looked at a couple of Shane Wilson's horses. Hims Diamond was a little bit interesting, I thought, but ultimately landed on a Thomas Lee horse, or Lee Thomas horse, I should say, for CJ McMahon. Charlie Prime, I thought, had a little bit of a tough go in that debut. Over a sloppy track, breaking from the far outside, and did what I always talk about. I always worry about horses breaking from the far outside because they break out towards open space, and the horse broke out towards open space and gave up a ton of ground early, stayed interested in the race and made up ground late. Educational start, breaks further inside now. I think might be able to show a little bit better speed, gets on a fast track, 10-1 on the morning line. It's a big price. The horses had some nice workouts leading up to this. So I think this one getting run back pretty quickly, I think makes a lot of sense here for Charlie Prime at 10-1. All right, folks, we did it. We got through all 14 races for Saturday at Fairgrounds. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope we connected you with a few winners along the way. Appreciate everybody tuning in to this episode of Capping the Card. And like I said, make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. Myself and my colleague, Kaylee Shapiro, we're going to be back with a lot of great content. Essex Handicap Preview, Road to the Derby and Oaks recap, first look at the Florida Derby, first look at the Arkansas Derby. We got you covered for next week, talking about the UAE Derby as well. A lot of great stuff, so folks, so make sure to subscribe to NYRA Bets. Appreciate everybody watching. My name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races. And reminding you, friends, it's now post time.